Just 2 years ago, I was working a regular construction job, making $15 an hour, waking up at 4 a.m., getting off of work at 6 p.m. every single day, with no college degree, no connections, no clue what the fuck I was going to do with my life. And in just the past 12 months alone, been able to close $1.2 million in sales. I made $30K a month for the past 3 months in a row, and my life is completely different than it was a year ago. Now in this video, I'm going to break down the 7 core principles that I adopted that got me here in the first place without going into sales scripts whatsoever. I truly believe if I learned these 7 principles sooner, I would have skipped months, if not years prior when I was procrastinating of making no money, and I would have fast-tracked my progress to my first 30K month. All right, lesson number 1 that I learned that helped me fast-track my progress was thinking in years and not weeks. When you think about the most successful business owners, the people that we all look up to, the one difference that they have, especially in their mindset when it comes to business, is thinking on longer time horizons, right? It's like, for example, if you were to think short term about an S&P 500 investment, and one year, you know, the S&P 500 goes down and you're a short-term thinker, obviously you're going to pull out and you're going to lose your money. But when you think about the most successful investors of all time, guys like Warren Buffett, for example, he's a successful investor because he thinks on long time horizons. He invests his money and he doesn't expect a return for 10, 15, 20 years down the line. And so that's also what it takes to be successful in sales. Now, I'll give you an example of long-term thinking for me. When I first got into sales, it was January of 2025. That was basically last year. And I made $200 my first month on my first offer. Realized that offer wasn't for me. Switched offers, made $500 a month on my second offer. And it wasn't until my third month that I made my first 8K month. I basically had a pop off. I was on a launch. I was really good by that point because I had already put in the work and the practice. But if I had had that short-term mindset, what do you think would have happened? I would have fucking quit, and I would have went to drop shipping, or I would have went to day trading, and I would have tried something else. And so thinking on a longer time horizon, not judging your success based on your first few weeks or your first few months, is what it takes to ultimately become successful long term. Now, thinking long term does not mean anything unless you apply the next lesson, but an example of how to think long term is, rather than thinking about what's going to happen next month or the month after, think in 12-month times and then reverse engineer what needs to happen. So for example, some of you guys know my story. I was an appointment setter and a closer for 6 months, went and started my own agency, ran that for 6 months, decided it wasn't for me, decided to get back into sales at the start of this year. And rather than thinking about what I needed to make in my first 2 months back, which luckily I made 30 grand a month in February and March, which was great. But rather than thinking about what I needed that month or the month after, I thought, where do I need to be at in 12 months? I set very big goals. I said, I need to touch my first $100,000 liquid. I need to be more thoughtful with my money and buy my family more stuff rather than myself more stuff, because I was selfish last year. And I thought on bigger time horizons. I thought about where could I be at a year from now, and it allowed me to literally stay on focus, not lose sight of the vision, not get distracted, think about what the next thing it is, or the next new vehicle for me to buy is, or new vehicle for me to even start with business, right? I am able to focus on what I have to focus on, be present on my calls, do all the stuff that I have to do, because I think in long time horizons. I know where I need to be at in a year, and I'm not worried about next month. Now, number 2, once again, I said I wasn't going to bore you with sales scripts. It's understanding psychology and not scripts. So what I mean by that is most sales reps, most people in the space, even most business owners when they're on sales calls for their business, follow scripts. So they say, hey, welcome to the call, man. Why did you book? They frame the call and they do this whole thing that they follow. Rather than following scripts, you need to follow essentially psychology and understanding it. And if I would have understood psychology sooner, I guarantee you I would have made more money quicker. I would have hit my first 30K month, 6 months into business rather than a year into business. And what I mean by this is that you must understand not just what you want people to say, but why they actually say what they say, and pay very deep attention to detail when it comes to what you're hearing from your prospect. So for example, something that everybody knows in a sales call is at some point you're going to ask a commitment question. So, hey, X, Y, and Z prospect, knowing what we know now, knowing that we have to overcome X, Y, and Z, how committed are you to overcoming whatever the problems they were facing in the past and actually putting yourself in the best position moving forward? And sometimes you'll hear an answer like, yeah, man, I'm pretty committed. Or, I think I'm committed this time around. If you hear what I said there, I said think and I said pretty. That is not certain language. And so psychologically, what the prospect is telling themselves is that they still have a way out because they never said that they're fully committed to anything. And so rather than letting that slide and moving on to the next part of your presentation or your pitch or your sales call, whatever the case is, if you don't understand psychology, you would have just let that go. If you understand psychology and you understand that somebody's not actually going to commit unless they say they're fully committed, you're going to fail. And so all you have to do there, of course, I'll give you a little sauce here, but pretty committed or fully committed? And then they'll say fully committed if they're fully committed. And if they say, well, I'm just not sure, then that's another objection for you to handle. The point I'm trying to make, though, is that if you don't understand psychology, if you don't understand that the root of change, the root reason why nobody changes is because of fear, you're never going to be successful in sales because you're going to be stuck reading a script. A prospect's going to say something at the start of the call that throws you off, and you're going to have no fucking clue what to say because you don't understand why they're saying it. Now, obviously, understanding people is one thing, but if you're not smart with your money once you start making it using this, it's not going to matter anyways. But another example would be at the start of the call, if someone says, hey man, I was just looking at the ad and I wanted to see what you're doing and what the pricing is, right? If you don't understand psychology, you're going to go to the next part in the script. They're going to fucking hang up on you. Either that or you're going to cause a bunch of sales resistance. But if you understand psychology, which is the reason this person's guard is up is because they're on a sales call, they're nervous, they've been scammed in the past. If you don't psychologically understand why they're doing it, you're not going to be able to overcome it. Versus keeping your cool, realizing that the reason they're doing it is because they got fucked in the past probably, and so you have to be sympathetic with them and help them overcome themselves. But if you don't know that, if you only know how to follow scripts, you're not going to be able to know what to do. That leads to the next point, which is lesson number 3. Stack your fucking cheese. Okay, let me explain the importance of stacking your bread. One money principle that I had to learn is that money is leverage. You cannot do anything unless you have cash in the bank. Obviously, investments in crypto are one thing, but like you cannot do anything if you don't have cash on hand. So if you make 30 grand a month and you spend 30 grand a month, the next time you have to try a new opportunity or go out there and use that money to do something, you're going to have nothing to show for it. And that's a lesson I had to learn very, very hard last year. So I remember it was June of 2025, and I had just hit my first $17,000 month. It was my biggest month to date, my biggest month of last year, actually. I made $17,000, and I was sitting in a Miami Brickell Airbnb with my friend Kirill and my friend Rick, and it was a long night. It was the last day of our Miami trip, and we were tired as fuck. But I just remember checking my bank account. I was like, yo, let's do like some expenses tracking. Let's see how much I spent. I spent, and it was literally like June 29th or whatever the last day of June was. I made $17,000. I spent $17,000, which means I had nothing to show for the money that I made in June. What ended up happening? Well, when I went to start off my own agency and I cut off all my cash flow and I had no more money coming in, eventually I had to start living on my fucking credit cards and pulling from the money that I had set aside from taxes and pulling from my savings, which left me damn near dead broke. And so the lesson I had to learn is be smart with your money, because if you're not smart with your money, you're doing a business to no outcome. You can't go anywhere if you don't have money in your pocket. You don't have anything to show for your hard work. So the lesson I learned now I'm a little bit Jewish with my money. Every time I get paid, 25% of it to taxes right away. My expenses are at a set amount every single month. The rest of my money all gets moved to my savings account. I'm going to hit a certain goal in my savings account, and then from there, I'm going to start to invest. But I didn't have any sort of structure in place. I didn't understand the reason that stacking my money was so important. Therefore, I just didn't do it because I didn't know any better. So that's the importance of this lesson. Now, obviously, stacking your money is important, but it's impossible to stack your money unless you create the opportunity for you to actually make shitloads of money. And that leads us to lesson number 4, which is that you have to go all in and you must eliminate everything that could possibly stop you from reaching your goal. Now, once again, I'm not going to talk about anything that I haven't personally gone through myself. But for me, for example, when I was first getting into online business, January of last year, I had already quit my job. I put in my 2 weeks. Actually, my manager asked me if I was going to join a pyramid scheme, which was kind of funny. But I had already quit my job. I had already basically decided I was going to drop out of college. I didn't fully drop out, but I took all my classes and I put them on pause until the second half of the semester. And basically it was like, hey, if it works out, then I'm done. I had just fucking broke up with my girlfriend. I just totaled my car. My dog had just died. Like a fuckload of shit happened. Point I'm trying to make, the importance of that, is that I had no other choice but to win. There was no other distractions in my life. There was nothing stopping me from actually reaching my goal. Now, that's exactly what happened to me. On the flip side, I'll give you an example. My friend Joseph. So my friend Joseph was someone who also was trying to get into the appointment setting, closing, the info space. And basically, I had found some success. He was one of my good buddies from high school. So I convinced him that he needs to go all in on himself as well. And so he did it, but he didn't fully go all in. So he kept his job. He was working at Olive Garden. He stayed in school. He asked his parents what they thought before getting into it, before going all in. And essentially gave himself a safety net. He gave himself something to fall back on. So what do you think happened to Joseph? 3 months into appointment setting, it was harder than he thought. He had probably made like $2,000 or $3,000 total, barely $1,000 every single month. And so he went back to what he was doing before. He went back to fucking working a regular job while still being in college. Meanwhile, I'm on my way to my first 30K month. And so the lesson here is that if you don't fully go all in, you're giving yourself a way out. And naturally, as humans, we like to go for comfort. And so if there's a way out, we're going to find it. Now, to add to that story, Joseph just last month made over $20,000, and this is not some sort of pitch. This is literally my fucking roommate. He made over $20K a month as a closer because he quit and he dropped out of college and he no longer had a job, and so he had no choice but to go all in. And so the lesson here is that you have to remove all safety nets at all costs and give yourself a chance at actually going all in, because you're never going to have that fire under your ass unless there is no other option. And the funny part is that worst comes to worst, you can just go back to getting a job, go back to school, and figure it the fuck out. It's not like you die when you quit your job. So most people don't realize that. And if you continue to have a safety net, you're never going to be able to actually accomplish the goals at the level that you want to. So now once you've actually eliminated all the distractions and everything that could possibly stop you from getting results, now we have to talk about where you actually put your money, which is going to be lesson number 5. Invest into yourself at all costs. I've spent over $30,000 in mentorships over the past 12 to 18 months, give or take. And the one thing I've learned, bro, is that whether or not you have a good experience or a bad experience inside a mentorship, it's always going to be a positive experience. And what I mean by that is that even if you invest into something and it doesn't work out necessarily in your favor, you still have the lesson, which is be careful where you put your money and be sure before you do something. Now, I'm not saying to not be uncertain and not to make risky decisions, because you have to in business. But like I bought TikTok shop mentorships, for example, but I was not 100% sure that that's what I wanted to go with. And so when I did it, I did split pay. I broke it into 2 payments. I quit after the first month. I never paid my second payment. And obviously I didn't get results. But what lesson did that teach me is that if I'm going to go all in with something, I better be ready to fucking go all in with something, and there's no other second chance. And so that's what happened when I got into high ticket sales. Now, from there, obviously I didn't spend $30,000 on my first mentorship. That was probably like $3,000. But since then, at the start of this year, for example, when I knew I was going to get back into sales, I had spent, I believe it was $7,000 for 10 weeks of one-on-one coaching, which seems ridiculous. And it almost seemed ridiculous to me at the time because, once again, I was damn near in debt. I owed the IRS $13,000 that I didn't have. I was living off of my savings. I had, you know what I'm saying? It seemed like a retarded decision. The reason I did it is because I knew that was going to light a fire under my ass. That was going to get me to my next revenue ceiling. And from there, once again, I hit a $30,000 month, my first month back in sales, strictly because I was fully committed. There was no other way out. And I had the help and the guidance that I needed as soon as I started with that. And so that helped me create this new rule, which is never say no to something that's going to help you acquire more skills. So, for example, I'm going to be going to a sales mastermind in May, which is about 30 days from now, or give or take, somewhere around there. And I was kind of debating, like, should I not? And what I realized that me saying no to that was saying that I am not worthy of going out there and learning more stuff and making more money, because I would have a scarcity mindset behind it. From there, though, I will never say no to anything that's going to help me make more money, that's going to expand my mind, get me in new rooms. And I'll literally do anything I can to put myself in a position to make more money. What is the easiest way to do that? Invest into yourself. Get around the people that are going to help you do so. Now, lesson number 5 goes hand in hand with lesson number 6, which is living in congruence. Now, for those of you guys who don't know who Wes Watson is, he's like this big, he has a big personal brand, but he's like a felon. He used to be in jail, and he's this big muscly dude with tats. He kind of gets memed online now, but he does have some good talking points, I'm not going to lie. But last year, with the LLC, we had a group coaching call with him where he basically pulled up to a meeting and just fried our shit for like 2 hours and told us how much we suck and how we need to stop being pussies. But he said something that stuck with me, which is that conscience, congruent living, turns confusion into clarity. Now, what that actually means is that you're always going to be in some sort of, confusional state, or a state where you're not 100% sure what you're going to do. You're not going to feel like yourself until you start to align your actions with your conscience and you're congruent with that. Thing is, it's like when you're on a sales call, energy is everything. And so when I hop onto a sales call, for example, people can feel my energy. They can feel that I'm congruent with what I'm saying. They can feel that I mean what I say because I've been through the same lessons that I'm teaching them. Now, if you're never someone who's congruent, if you say you're going to go to the gym in the morning and you don't wake up and go to the gym, instead of you fucking eat Takis and then get on your first meeting, people are going to be able to feel that energy, as if you truly believe every word that you're saying because you're congruent. Your thoughts align with your actions. And if you don't have that, how can you expect people to take you serious? How can you expect people to listen to you? Now, this last point is probably the most important out of all 7, but real quick, before we move on, I want to wrap up this final point, which is like the reason I can handle objections on a sales call, the reason my close rate is so high, and the reason I'm so convicted with what I sell is because I live in exact congruence with what I say. I've had to handle my own objections, right? Even the most recent example would be the video editor that's going to edit this video. I was giving him a money objection on the call. I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do it right now, if I want to pull the trigger. And I literally just sat there and handled my own objection. I said, well, I'm being a bitch about this. My prospects are the same shit. What would I tell my prospect to do? Just do it. And so I had to overcome that objection myself, and it allows me to overcome other people's objections. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's get into the seventh and the most important point. The seventh and final lesson: your circle is your ceiling. I'm probably pretty similar to you. I'm probably from a small hometown where there's not that many people. There's not a bunch of famous people with Maybachs and fucking sports cars that we look up to. I was from humble beginnings. I was surrounded by regular human beings. My parents are regular human beings. I don't have any rich uncles. I was just a regular ass kid. And so until I started to expand my environment and the people that I hang around, I was never going to be able to break through that. The point I'm trying to make here is that you have to surround yourself with people who are going to help you and push you towards working towards your goal. Now, for example, I'm sure you guys know, we've covered it a lot, but I work with the LLC, which is an info product agency. We run full stack marketing and sales teams. I'm a closer for them. And these are some of the highest level people that I've ever been around that hold me accountable literally every single day to get closer towards my goals versus retracting. I mean, this shit genuinely runs like a sports team. I remember one time we hired a setter and he quit after a few weeks and complained that we run like we're Alabama and Nick Saban's our coach. And he was referring to Benny, my sales manager, and he genuinely quit because it was too hard, because we held him to such a high standard. And the only way I'm able to act the way I do now, the only way I'm able to work 12 hours a day, the only way I'm able to take such good care of myself and make money and save money and just be the best version of me is because I'm surrounded by people who do that. And it's become the new norm for me. That's what leads me to say, like, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're simply in the wrong room. Even where I am now, in a college town, I live at FSU. I still live around college kids, even though I'm not in college. I'm typically the smartest, the most competent person in my environment. And so when I move to Miami in 4 months, I guarantee you, not just mentally, physically, everything will expand for me because I'm going to be surrounded by new people in a new environment. But even right now, I'm an example of this. Obviously, I surrounded myself with like-minded people online who are better than me, who are farther than me. But physically, I am stopping my growth right now because of where I live. And so obviously I have to wait for my lease to end. But that's just another example. I guarantee you, if I was in Miami right now, all of my limitations that I place on myself would be completely broken because I see people who are way farther ahead of me than I currently am. Another example would be my roommate, Joseph. As you guys know, like I said, I closed him on a sales training program. I made him invest into himself. I made him go all in. And obviously he half-assed it at the start, but now he lives with me. I hold him to a higher standard, and boom, what do you know? I make $30K my first month. I make $30K my second month. I'm on pace for $40 this month. He sees that. And all of a sudden, he goes from $6K a month to $20K a month. How did that happen? Because he saw me do it. I guarantee you, if I didn't live here, if we replaced me with a different roommate, Joseph would have never made $20K a month because he didn't see somebody do it right in front of him. And so that's the importance of surrounding yourself with people who you aspire to be like and aren't similar to who you are right now. Once again, those are the 7 lessons that took me from working a regular construction job where I was making $15 an hour all the way to clearing my first $30,000 month in February of this year, another $30,000 month in March of this year, and I'm on pace for another 30 to 35 to 40K month this month. Literally at just 20 years old, without a college degree, without relying on anyone else except for myself. The reality is, none of this is actually complicated. It's not actually hard to learn these lessons. It's that most people are just too lazy to implement them. If you guys did get something from this, go follow me on Instagram, shoot me a DM if you have any questions, and if you want to learn more about what we're building at the LLC, the link's going to be in the description as well. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace.